Good morning, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us. We are really excited to have the PUD General Manager, Sean Worthington, on this morning, and the Assistant General Manager, John Purvis. So just a few housekeeping details. Please put yourself on mute if you haven't already, so that we don't inadvertently pick up some background noise. And there are several topics. I put that out in the email I was hoping to talk about. And so, but we'll get to all those issues. I think the primary topic is the lack of transformers right now and the supply chain issues around something called GOES. So we'll learn about that and hear what the PUD is doing to try to resolve that issue. But then we'll open it up at the end for questions as well. And so with that, I am going to pass it over to Sean Worthington, the General Manager of the PUD. Take it away, Sean. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Colleen, and thanks everybody for attending today. Like Colleen said, she invited John and I to talk about the transformer supply chain issues that are not only plaguing our utility, but the state, the country, and the entire world right now. It's also making national media attention, and the Biden administration has even declared the situation a threat to national security. So it is a very high priority topic right now. And at the PUD, we are working hard behind the scenes to do what we can to procure an adequate supply of transformers, but the price escalations and lack of availability are just making it extremely difficult to do so right now. We have proactively reached out to the Builders Association, local contractors, realtors, and other local stakeholders to inform all of them of the situation and let them know that we have also suspended taking applications for new connects at this time due to the shortage. We're also updating our board at each meeting with progress reports. And I'm going to have John go through a PowerPoint slide deck here in just a few minutes that he presented at the last meeting. So my hope is that the presentation is interactive. So at any point, if anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to interject and jump in. Our goal is that everyone here would walk away with their questions answered. And then as Colleen said, if there's any time at the end, we're happy to answer any questions and also go over some additional items that the PUD is currently working on. So with that, John, I'll turn it over to you. And Colleen, can he share his screen? Okay.
Yep, we already set that up.
All right, perfect.
We're all ready to go. So thanks, John.
Okay, hi, John Purvis, Assistant General Manager. I hope everybody can see the slide regarding supply chain issues. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so basically, this is a presentation that's actually a compilation of several previous board presentations, as well as most updated information. So see if I can get through here. So basically, transformers. In 2020, 2021, deliveries of previously ordered transformers were substantially delayed. What used to take 22 to 26 weeks over the course of 2020 and 22 changed from 22 weeks to 30, 40, 50, and eventually well over a year on receiving our transformer orders. And we have not received any of our regular transformer orders for scheduled deliveries in calendar year 2022. So basically, we expected a large order in January, did not happen, got moved out. March, the second order, April, each and every one of them, they're not available. And even until today, the most recent quotes we have on transformers are as far out as 84 weeks, which is historically unknown before. The primary concern is smaller single-phase pad-mounted transformers, the ones we most frequently use for new residential customers. And we're also experiencing other electric supply and equipment delays but not nearly so bad as the issue of transformers. And keep in mind, if you don't have a transformer, you don't have a power, you don't have new services, it puts a total clamp on development. Basically, it's a very inflationary. Projects that are supposed to proceed simply cannot. Okay, the causes, the underlying issues based on our research is a lack of high-grade grain-oriented electrical steel. Colin, you said the word goes, and I'm going to use that going forward. And that is primarily used in the manufacture of transformer cores in thin sheets to create the core of the transformer for the voltage transformation. Pandemic restrictions curtailed production of GOES for much of 2020. There were a lot of shutdowns. And as a result, that pushed out the lead times for transformer deliveries. And we normally have a 10 to 12 month supply of transformers we keep on hand, but we've been eating into that for well over a year. And then early this year, we basically ran out. Some of the causes, in addition to the restrictions from the pandemic, is high efficiency standards. The United States adopted these in 2015, 2016, which is to minimize energy losses. And the other nations have also adopted them. So basically, that narrows the amount of steel available for transformers somewhat, because manufacturing has not kept up with the demand for high efficiency transformer core steel. We also
John,
yes.
real quick, I forgot to mention, I'd like to try to make this interactive. So I've got my hand raised, and if anybody else has questions, please do so, and I'll try to interject and call on you. But you talked about having 10 to 12 transformers worth available. What does that equal? I mean, what is typically 1 month's worth of inventory?
Yeah, so basically, I meant to say 10 to 12 months, and that's for all transformer sizes. Right. And keep in mind, there are literally dozens of transformer voltage classifications, KVA sizes, and let's say for the most commonly used 25 KVA transformers, it's not unusual for us to have 120 to 140 units for the 25 KVA size, 120, 240 volts. And our utility over the course of a year for all transformers typically might utilize 300 transformers, sometimes more, sometimes less. And that's both for new services and replacement of failed transformers that don't last forever. In our system, they can last easily 50 years, but we do have failures. So yeah, I'll try to keep an eye out for hands up. And plus, don't hesitate to interrupt me if you have a question.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so also global exports diminished over the last few years as some developing nations reduced exports to maintain domestic supply. China, India, Brazil, they tend to focus on their local interests before they allow exports. Also, the war in Eastern Europe further caused issues with the availability of GOES by eliminating one of the large suppliers, as well as realigning global trade due to sanctions and other reasons. And transformers production accounts for about 50% or half the GOES that's manufactured. But also electric vehicles, which is really booming now. Sales are up. And plus, they're experiencing similar problems in deliveries for electric vehicles because they use the same type of material in electrical motors. Okay, so by far, China produces the most GOES, but it's almost all for domestic use. The other big suppliers as of 2019 were in this order: Japan, China, Russia, South Korea, and we're pretty far down on the list at number 10. We only have one major steel company that produces large quantities of GOES, Cleveland Cliffs, and that was through their acquisition of AK Steel. Unfortunately, the production is far below current domestic needs. And as Sean mentioned, on November last year, the U.S. Department of Commerce identified planned shutdowns of 2 AK plants goes as a national security threat to the power grid. And I believe those plants did stay open. Unfortunately, they cannot keep up with domestic demand. Okay, so what have we done? In March and April, we presented our governance the wide variety of efforts previously made to mitigate the transformer supply shortage, and we made frequent updates since. We modified our standards. We removed the stainless steel requirement. We're satisfied now with mild steel. These transformers will wear out quicker in our environment, but if you need transformers and you have some special conditions on your standards, you limit your supply. So we've abandoned those. We also have removed the tight electric impedance requirements, which is an electrical characteristic that allows more flexibility in transformers. We also, beginning last year, we did see this coming. We weren't getting deliveries. So we did have about 50 idle transformers for the 25 kVA pad size that we actually brought back into stock to use for new services. Now, a couple of these, the customers, came back and we had to put them back out, but we've essentially removed any excess spare transformers that are installed in the field. We've long since brought those back. We've also provided in emergency situations, if zoning and permitting authority allows, to allow a customer to install a pole with an overhead transformer for new service where a pad mounted transformer was intended. We do have a supply of overhead transformers, an adequate supply. The biggest problem is the 25 kVA small pad mounted transformer. And we're also making every effort to repair and recondition old transformers as is feasible. Okay, we also implemented projects to consolidate service transformers where we can replace multiple in-service 25 kVA transformers with a larger transformer with more secondary runs. That's consolidation of homes and services under a larger transformer like we normally do in residential subdivisions. We also wanted to make this high profiler for the builders and those affected by this. We conveyed that information in April and May this year. We joined the APPA e-reliability tracker and lobbying efforts to relax transformer efficiency standards. We did that in May. We also made an opportunistic purchase of non-standard single bushings 25 kVA pad transformer in a quantity of 17 from a canceled order of another utility. Colleen?
Yeah, so can you characterize how many projects or homes do you think are right now being affected by this?
We believe
lack of supply?
Yes, we believe as of the time we stopped taking new service requests, we had a backlog of between 70 and 80 individuals who either needed service immediately or we're going to need it in the near future at various stages. So as of the beginning of May, we had a deficit of at least 70 some odd transformers.
Okay. And so does that equate to one house? Is that right?
Normally. So basically right now, the most customers who are requesting service is a 1-for-1. One 25 kVA transformer typically serves one home. Although you can have developments where one transformer might serve 3 homes, but we have not had many of those. But there are a number of those larger developments on the horizon that are in planning for as early as next year.
Okay. And I see Commissioner Ozias has a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, John, whether if our hope is that this is a short-term or medium-term supply chain issue primarily, would temporary conservation measures, if they were successful, be helpful in any way, or technologically speaking, is that not really an issue that would be connected to the transformers?
Yeah, it could conceivably help in a very few situations, but most of these are is basically part of the electric line to the home. So basically, you know, it's a 1-for-1. If there were a situation where there may be situations that if we do become short on our 3-phase transformers, we may have a smaller size transformer available for a customer that if they were to curtail their load initially, or they could reduce their requirements for an intermediate period, we might be able to serve them with a smaller transformer than they normally should. But we don't have that problem with our larger 3-phase transformers yet. Okay, so we also obtained, in addition to the 17 non-standard single bushing transformers that are, you know, kind of an oddball size for our system, City of Port Angeles, we were fortunate, was able to provide us 6 transformers, 3 25 kVA and 3 37.5 kVA. Okay, also, even though we have more than 200 pad transformers on order with past or near future delivery dates, that's part of the problem. According to our system, we're fine because we have all these transformers in the pipeline. The problem is they're not getting here. So our last board meeting on June 13th, we obtained board approval for an emergency procurement of 76 additional transformers that became available due to canceled order of other utilities. I believe this one was PGE. And fortunately, we did receive 56 of these units with 20 more to come, we believe next week or the following week. So basically, in a way, we've kind of more than made up the deficit of existing service requests. But there are a problem with these transformers. Number one, they don't fit on a standard pad. They're single bushing. They can't be fed through to daisy chain. They're essentially designed for dead end transformer use where you have one customer with that transformer. So basically what we're going to have to do, oh, and by the way, some of these are reconditions, and we're paying 4 times as much for these transformers as we paid for transformers 2 years ago. There's a non-standard single bushing. So what our plan is to take these transformers that we have received, and in the month of July, go out in the field, locate the quote dead end transformers where you only have one transformer without any follow through to additional customers, and replace those and bring the dual bushing loop fed transformers back to stock for the new services. And if you count them up, we do need some for emergency use, but when you take 17 we've already ordered, plus 6 from Port Angeles, plus 56 we received, plus 20 more that's coming probably next week, we made up most of the deficit. And we will begin for the ones who have paid for service, I believe, in starting in the month of August, start fulfilling those past requests. And let's see, yeah, we have enough. We do have to do the field replacements, and we expect to also start.
Hey, John, you have a question.
Oh, Emily?
Yeah, hi. I mean, I think you're kind of answering it, but what I'm hearing, right, is that while it does sort of seem like the number of transformers is going to kind of add up to the number of backlog requests, it's going to be a minute before they're ready. And then it seems like there won't necessarily be any on hand for kind of future requests. Is that accurate as of the time being?
Yeah, well, yeah, largely so. So basically, we do have to replace transformers in the field, and we're going to actually have crews working overtime to do that. There's a lot of transformer replacements in the field to go out and swap out actually 76 plus 17, 90 something transformers. We will have some available for new service requests, but it'd be very limited. And for that reason, we're not going to be able to supply much of the needs that have not made orders yet. But we are going to, in August, develop a plan to take service requests based on need and the ability to take load. we won't allow somebody to set a meter base with no load just to get a transformer. It's going to require a need for load to get in a priority listing, probably a deposit of some sort. We don't want people to pay a high cost for something we can't provide, but we do want a deposit or some amount to indicate need of transformers, and we'll set an order. And we hope to find other transformers available. We hope to start receiving our normal orders, and we will be able to take some new orders and supply transformers for service, but we expect that very soon that will run out and we will need to get new transformers to
Sure.
service load.
Can I ask another? Sorry to interrupt
Sure,
everyone.
sure.
Is there any ability to, it sounds like it would take some work and some changes, but you're saying like right now, typically it's sort of a one-to-one customer, especially for the like smaller kind of 25 kVA transformers. Is there any like way to sort of plan for using a larger transformer? Like if you're kind of in an area, because oftentimes there are areas where the transformers are not that, or can you kind of retrofit like?
Yes, Emily, and actually I mentioned that previously. I wasn't entirely clear about it, but we have situations where we have two 25 kVA transformers within 20 feet, one serving one customer, another serving another. And we do have more or better availability of 50 kVA transformers. We might be able to set a 50 kVA transformer and run a secondary run from that transformer to the other transformer pad site, and that will bring two 25 kVA transformers back into stock through the use of a single 50 kVA transformers. And that's what I meant when we initiated projects for consolidations.
Got it. Okay, great.
That's a very good point. We've tried to think of everything we can do to get by and get through this. Hopefully the supply chains will return somewhat to normal, but regardless of what happens, we're going to have to pay a lot of money for transformers, 3 times normal, 4 times normal.
So John, couple questions in the chat here. James asks, can you please give us the actual cost of the new transformer?
Yes.
So if I put my name on the list in August, when can I tentatively plan to have one installed?
Okay, so basically keep in mind, we've had requests for new service since we stopped taking orders. So basically we have to, we're going to open up this, and then we're going to be inundated with calls. We're going to have not only people who need service in the next few months, we're already getting calls of concerns for people who don't need service until next year. So it's going to be a very complex process to order. It's going to be based on the need for service, all the L&I stuff, the meter base in place, and the actual load to serve, construction of buildings even to evidence the need for load, and we'll start working on a list. And to be honest with you, beyond the first few transformers we may have left over after this, we simply do not know when we're going to get transformers, so we can't make any promises. All we can do is say when we get them, we'll do everything as we have been doing within our power to get service. We understand that this is a killer for any economic development in our county. It basically cuts it off at the knees. You can't do anything. It's also very inflationary.
Mm-hmm.
You said you had another question?
Let's see. So what is for a 25 kVA? What did you say what the price was for a new transformer today that the PUD would charge? And
Okay,
that's an upfront cost, is that right?
Yeah. Well, no, this is not a cost that's typically charged to customers, although our board is considering a capacity charge for new service requests. Normally, this cost is built into the rates when we budget for transformers. But to give you an idea, 25 kVA pad transformer, which at the beginning of 2020 was costing us about $1,200, maybe $1,200 to $1,500, depending on quotes and bids. The Ranch Runner 25 kVA transformers, which are not stainless steel, which do not have tight impedance requirements, cost us $6,700, more
Wow.
than 4 times the cost we were paying a couple years ago. Our
Mhm.
transformer budget, which we typically in a year spend $700,000 to $800,000, is going to triple or quadruple as we start paying for these higher cost transformers that come in. Now, the ones that we have on order are not that high, and this may be part of the problem receiving it, because these orders we were placed and were quoted at $2,500, $4,000 as the year went on. Now these manufacturers are selling these transformers out of desperation for $6,800. We don't even know how that's playing into it, but I'm sure it is. They don't want to deliver us a quoted transformer for $3,000 when they got people at the door asking for transformers willing to pay $6,000 and $7,000.
Okay. So, and any guess for folks that, I mean, your guess would be better than theirs or mine, as to like, if they do get on the list in August and if they have a load or a demand that's waiting, is any guess bet range that they should be expecting?
Yeah, you know what? I'll be honest. We were guessing and we were guessing and we were guessing we were going to get orders, and we believed that a quote and an order, was pretty firm. And over the last 2 years, we learned that is not the case. As a matter of fact, to give you a sense of what we're dealing with now, the quotes we get for transformers, they put language on the quote that the quoted delivery date and price are not firm. So basically, what is that? So we received bids for quotes saying these transformers will be available in 76 weeks at a price of $6,000, but we can't confirm the price or the delivery. That's how bad it is for us.
Mhm, mhm. And it used to be more concrete, right? And they've just changed the, because of
Absolutely.
the GOES limitation.
Well, absolutely. So basically, before, if they quoted 22 to 26 weeks, it was always 22 to 26 weeks. It was a condition of the bid. The price
Mhm.
was a condition of the bid. Now, in some situations, a long time ago, there were inflationary escalation that's becoming more common now. And even our standard procurement process through Sourcewell and MRSC recognize that. But typically, these are inflationary type increases where they can point to a particular commodity and say that copper prices rose a certain percentage, and that means these bids are going to be 8–10% higher than when they were quoted. And there's provisions for that, but there's nothing like what's going on here with transformers, where the quotes are not based on commodity prices. It's based on a lot of other extraneous things beyond our control.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we got some of the questions. Also, if there's any more questions on transformer, we're going to try to be as transparent as possible and as honest as possible. We're not going to overpromise. We're just going to convey that we're going to do everything within our power. And I want to, compliment our board. We have more than 200 transformers on order at a low price, and they recognize the issue. And they authorize an emergency procurement of transformers far beyond the price that any prudent individual on an economic basis would be willing to pay, because we understand the problem, and we're going to keep doing everything we can. We're going to allow overhead transformers at underground pad sites for the absolute emergencies, and that's something we can do regardless of availability of pad mounted transformers.
Mhm. So, John, if you have those 200 that have been on order that haven't arrived, will people, are you going to be getting them at that quoted price, the lower quoted price? Or are they going to arrive, at this much higher price? And then what is the plan if you do a capacity charge for new service for those versus others that may be behind in the queue that have to get one of these that cost $6,700?
Yeah, so basically, I don't know. My expectation, to be honest with you, is we're going to end up paying more for the transformers than the quoted price. I don't know how much more, but at some point in time, and keep in mind, at some point in time, this, in a way, this is a bubble. This is a
Mhm.
bubble, and sometimes bubbles break. Then all of a sudden, transformers have become more plentiful, and we're going to end up with a stock of transformers that's going to be probably 2 years or more for some sizes because of the number on order and the number that we're getting under emergency procurement. Now, as far as the costing, and like I say, before our board is a consideration of a capacity charge as opposed to for new requesting customers, as opposed to overall ratepayers. I can tell you with confidence that the rate impact on the transformer escalation by the end of next year is equivalent to 2.3% rate impact. That's big. Now, our utility, we've really tried to tighten up, and our recent rate increase for earlier this year was 2.25%. And the rate increase that we have lined up for next year is 2.25%. Utilities across the country, if you look at the EIA statistics, as of December, the year-to-year increase in utility rates was close to 9%. It's now over 10%. So we're going to do everything we can to mitigate the rate impact of transformer costs, as well as increase in other costs, including other materials, and we anticipate labor, because when you have inflation that's close to 9%, it eventually is going to impact costs. But we're doing everything we can to avoid dramatic rate increases, keeping to what we have outlined. And to actually do that will require a capacity charge. For residential customers, the most common service request, that capacity charge is going to be $1,200.
Okay. And it looks like James asked another question: is demand increases, national standards, use in EVs, are the timelines and costs likely a new standard? If so, is the PUD implementing policies to mitigate the impact to Clallam users in the future?
Yes, we're discussing of expansive inventory. We never had a just-in-time inventory process here at our utility. Utilities generally are conservative. They want to have materials on hand when they need it. We have storms. We can have a storm that knocks out 30 overhead transformers. Easy. We had one at the end of 2018. So we want to have stock for when we have emergencies. But we are reviewing our policies. Maybe 10 to 12 weeks supply is not enough. Maybe we need 2 years. Of course, you're building in a lot of expense and cost to do that. Now, in the end, I think this is a supply and demand thing, and in prices. Over time, the manufacturers will increase capacity, because if people are willing to pay $6,000 for 25 kVA pad mounted transformers, people find solutions. It just doesn't happen quickly, because such manufacturing of, let's say, go still and manufacturing that's needed to do that takes time to put into place. So yes, in the years ahead, this problem will be mitigated and solved. It just is not going to happen in the near or maybe in an intermediate period.
So we have some other topics to cover, but before we move on, can Thomas or Nathan from the city of Port Angeles, are either of you able to share kind of what your status is and what is the city doing? Are they in the same position? Obviously, you provided, looks like 6 25 kVA transformers. Can you, I saw you both join, so thank you. Can one of you speak to that?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in, and I'll just keep these comments brief. I think first off, just great presentation, John. I think there's just a plethora of really, really good information in there. We don't have necessarily the immediate issue as severe right now within the city for a couple of different reasons. But the thing that I will stress that John really hit the nail on the head, right, is projecting anything over a 12-month, beyond a 12-month period right now is darn near impossible. And at some point, we believe that the market will get quote unquote flooded as manufacturing ramps back up and things of that nature. But long lead times and unpredictability right now is of great concern. And it's something that we're actively watching. So other than that, great presentation.
Okay, thanks, Thomas. So Thomas is the Public Works Director for the city of Port Angeles, for those of you that weren't aware of that. So
yeah, hey, Colleen, yeah, and Thomas, we appreciate what the city did for us. It was only 6 transformers, but we've allocated those that are ready to use. They meet our standards for basically emergencies. If we have a transformer fail, we're going to be able to keep the lights on, in part because we have those transformers immediately available.
are there any larger projects that are waiting on larger transformers? Like I know the Allen Mill in Jefferson County that you guys serve, that area, weren't they needing transformers?
I believe the transformer sizes they need, we were able to facilitate that. Plus, we're not out of large 3-phase transformers. We're paying a
Okay.
lot more money for them, but we're not out. Or really our only outage is basically the 15, 25, 50 kVA transformers are getting short too, pad mounted. All other sizes we have. Unfortunately, 25 kVA transformers is by far the largest used item for new services.
Mhm. So this may be a bad question to ask because it may be really technical. And if so, Sean should answer it, not you, because you start going into things and I have trouble keeping up with the technicalities. But so when do you use pad mounted and when would you use a pole mounted transformer?
It depends entirely on the customer request and the nature of the line. So you can take a pad mounted transformer from an overhead line if the customer is running underground primary service to that pad site and they want it underground. We can also do an overhead tap off an overhead line, string overhead wire to a new pole with a pole mounted transformer there that can either have an overhead service drop or an underground service drop on the secondary side of the transformer. So basically, it's the customer preference or the jurisdiction mandate for what's going in. Some areas require underground URD or residential construction.
Okay, so if you didn't have a pad mounted availability, could someone order a pole mounted instead? And what's the availability there?
Yeah, we have that. Actually, we've considered that is an option for people who desperately need power. If you have primary to a pad site, you can run the primary high voltage up the pole, tap into an overhead transformer, and then bring the secondary 240 volts down the pole to serve the house. That is an option we're allowing customers because of our availability of overhead transformers is far better than pad mounted transformers.
Okay. All right.
But it's going to stay overhead unless the customer comes back and converts it to underground again. But if you need power, maybe a pole in the yard with an overhead transformer is not the worst thing in the world.
Okay. Thanks. So you were going to talk about some other work that you guys are doing. So take
in
it
the
away.
interest,
So we're switching off transformers now.
well, in the interest of time, Colleen, do any of these topics, probably won't get to all of them. Do you have a preference on any of these topics?
I think the capital projects certainly, and then we can, if anyone on the call has a preference, something they'd like to hear them cover, go ahead and put that in the chat.
Well, the capital projects, you got to keep talking, John.
Well, I'm going to go pretty quick on here. I just want to make sure everyone is aware that throughout the pandemic to this date, we tried to maintain a high capital intensive effort. We were there, we were doing our normal stuff. This year, we are rebuilding and modernizing our last legacy substation in Forks. This means the project commenced in 2006 to cover all our PUD substations, and consolidation of smaller substations is nearing completion. We'll have modern electronic equipment, SCADA, which is supervisory control and automation, new transformers, new protective devices. We've gotten rid of over the last 15, 16 years, all the 1960s, 1970s, and some of the 1980s legacy equipment, and we built a modern substation. Also in our projects recently completed was the central feeder 115 upgrade for the work in Port Angeles from Cherry Street towards BPA. And that is part of a project that's been going on for 13 years that will allow a dual feed or looped transmission feed between Joyce and Port Angeles. That allows alternate feeds if there's an outage from one source so that we can switch load around, supply 3 substations with alternate supply. It should be a big reliability enhancement in the event of a transmission failure. Recently, we have work that we're on Evans Road that we've completed. We expect to pick it back up in later in the year. And this will tie or produce a high capacity distribution tie between our Sunland substation outside of Sunland Development to our Evergreen substation located at 5th and Olympic Highway, so that it provides almost full redundancy for SQUIM area substations, meaning if we lose a substation, we now have the capacity under most circumstances to supply those customers with power from other substations. It's part of an effort like the transmission redundancy to build in redundancy throughout our system to improve reliability. We're also doing cable replacement projects. Most recently, one that we completed was Pond Lane off of Evans Road. And for that project and other cable replacement projects, we're getting the most use out of our directional drilling equipment, which we procured a few years ago, where we can go into a subdivision instead of doing excavation, backhoe work, trench work. We're able to do a directional bore with minimizing the surface disturbance, and we're getting a lot of success out of that equipment. We're going to use it more and more often in cable replacements, and it has minimum impact to customers. Plus, we could do it cheaper. And lastly, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of details, but there's an awful lot of Washington State DOT utility relocation requirements, one being the Elwha Bridge. There's recent activity on that, as well as many fish culvert projects for the state and soon to be county, where we have to relocate electrical lines to accommodate those projects. Any questions on some of our larger projects or other projects you might have heard about?
No, we have some requests though of regarding topics. A couple people have asked for discussion on Carlsberg UGA water update and then also broadband.
Okay, Sean, you want to kick off those?
Yeah, I can give a quick update on the UGA. Excuse me. We're currently working with the county and the Department of Ecology to secure additional water rights to serve the urban growth area in Carlsberg. And we've also, staff at the PUD and county are also working on a memorandum of understanding to prioritize both parties' interests and ensure that we can secure ample water rights to serve the UGA. We're close to finalizing that MOU, and we plan to present to both the county and PUD commissioners in the near future. And the MOU is basically going to serve as a roadmap for how the county and PUD can work together to achieve common interests. About a week and a half ago, on June 17th, the county's consultant, Robinson Noble, presented the mitigation plan to Ecology. Ecology appears to support the plan in most ways. They do have some questions regarding the full build out of the UGA, And Tom Martin, our water systems manager, is working on providing the necessary information requested from Ecology. And kind of simultaneous to that, we are also working on installing a blending treatment system to deal with the rising nitrates at our current well in Carlsberg. The county did drill a new well, and what we're looking to do is build a pipeline from the new well and our existing well to land that the PUD owns in Carlsberg on Idea Place. And at that confluence of the two pipes, we would basically build a blending system that would treat the water and bring the nitrates down to a safe level. And we believe that this project, judging from the nitrate levels, needs to be completed sometime around 2025 or 2026. And we're currently working now to secure funding for that project.
Hey, Sean, I would add that project also will result in additional water rights through mitigation. And the objective, or at least one of the PUD's objective, and I think it's a common interest, is to maximize the amount of water rights that are granted through ecology, through mitigation, to maximize the ability of our PUD to serve more and more people as we build out from our existing LUD.
So I have a question about that. So it's a well that will be owned by the PUD. Is that right? If once the water rights are approved? I just wrote a letter on behalf of Tom to Mike Gallagher at DOE regarding the urgency of this issue and trying to push them along somewhat, because it's taken what, 2 years for DOE to make any decision here? Is that right?
Yeah, and our understanding is that they still have not made a decision. They're in the receiving public comment phase right now. And that's why we're asking for letters of support for the treatment plan and also for additional water rights for the area.
Okay.
Yeah, but we are getting signs of more momentum building to a solution that's advantageous for all agencies involved.
So why is it that the county did the well rather than the PUD?
That
And
was
maybe that's a question for Commissioner Ozias. I don't know.
I can defer to Commissioner Ozias.
Well, the straightforward answer is because we wanted to start working to effect change in Carlsberg and allow for more housing, and an investment needed to be made, and in order for us to move forward, and so we went ahead and started down that path. I'm really glad that we are working on this path forward. I do think that we've been making progress with Department of Ecology, and I'm happy the trajectory that we're on. It is important to note, I think anyway, that the PUD's the use of their current water right, they're using about 20% of their current water right in Carlsberg, and as a conservative, which I understand, policy decision, they've been a little bit reticent to allow for additional expansion without additional water right. And so as this process is moving along, if the PUD commissioners would be willing to consider a policy change allowing for some additional expansion within the current water right, then that could help us really make some more progress in the immediate term as we're working on the medium and longer term future.
And I agree with you, Mark. That is actually something that we are addressing in the MOU to relinquish some of those water rights so that we can move forward in the UGA. It gives me great hope to see that. And again, I'm really appreciative that the PUD and the county are working closely to make progress here in this really important part of the county.
All right, broadband, since we have 8 minutes left.
Okay, I can kick that one off too, John. Excuse me. Broadband has definitely been a recent hot topic lately with lots of media attention surrounding the Biden administration's allotment of grant money. Our utility has adopted what's called an excess capacity model, which basically means that the PUD operates a backbone network between all of our own facilities, and then any excess capacity on those lines we provide to the ISPs. So we, the district, are providing the middle mile access, and the ISPs are providing the fiber to the home. And so by providing the middle mile backbone, we do everything that we can to ensure that our local ISPs are being successful. We have recently applied for multiple grant applications with Washington State Public Works, the State Broadband Office, NTIA, and even applied for ARPA funds directly from the county. Unfortunately, all of our requests and applications have been denied. However, we are working currently on a middle mile grant application between Laird's Corner and Forks that needs to be submitted this September. And if successful, we do have ISPs who have expressed interest in serving the West End with fiber to the home out there, which would be successful for our county if we can get that grant. We're also currently working on building up to Lake Dawn to serve that community. I'm unsure at this point which ISP would take that service, but I do know that several have expressed interest if we get the backbone built up to Lake Dawn. And we are also working with all local stakeholder groups, including the Broadband Action Team, which partners with NODC, the county, Port, City of Port Angeles, Forks, SWIM, on just various broadband projects and initiatives here in the county.
Yeah,
Anything you
so,
want to add to that, John?
Yeah, I'll add that, yeah, we've been supportive of the county effort and their success in getting funds for the 112 project, providing expertise, pole contacts, anything we can do to facilitate that. The middle mile that we're looking at between Port Angeles or Laird's Corner and Forks is going to be $11 to $13 million project, and it will open the door for retail broadband where it's not or limited access now. For us, it will be a 70-30 match, but the electrical purposes for that, which is the PUD contribution, the fiber will tie together our east and west end substations. We have a small network in the Forks area. We have substantial fiber network throughout eastern SWIM. That link will tie it together and improve our capacity. Right now, we're relying on radio RF to make that link. And we don't have a whole lot of excess capacity in that RF link that we currently have. With fiber, we'll have more than enough capacity for any ISP who wishes to gain access to our excess capacity.
So how did you choose that to be the focus of the investment? I mean, rather than, did you look at where there's the biggest need across the county and that was the one that bubbled up?
Well, in all honesty, the biggest PUD need for our communications and our SCADA and our AMI is tying our substations together with fiber. And that's number one. That's our primary mission. The fiber is a subsidiary of the electric department. And that is where our biggest need is. We have not built that ourselves because it's $11 to $13 million project. And the electrical benefit is, $3 million improvement of operations. But through this grant, we believe we have a good opportunity to construct that and provide the excess capacity and value that is afforded by the grant to, in the end, the customer seeking broadband on the West End.
Okay. So how many new homes would be served by that investment, do you think, where they'd have better internet reception?
Okay, so basically there's a we know what we have for electric meter counts. On the entire west end, there's roughly 5,500 electric meters. And in the Forks area, 3,500.
But it's entirely dependent on the ISPs and them bringing fiber to the home out there.
Okay. Let's see. Looked like Mark, you had a topic. Let's see.
Oh, I just was curious if there's time, what your latest thoughts are with regard to how you plan on engaging partners in the public as you build for the contract negotiations, the next round of contract negotiations.
You're talking specific to the Bonneville contract, Mark?
Yes, yeah, just
Yeah.
as one of the topics that you had on your, ones to hit today.
Yeah, so we've been engaging. There's a small working group of PUDs and attorneys and advocates for public power that are working behind the scenes right now daily. And it's over the next 2 years, there's going to be a lot going on regarding the contract. But it looks like, from all intents and purposes, the contract is going to be similar to the regional dialogue contract that's in place now with a tiered rate methodology. And as far as how it's all going to shake out in the end, there's still a lot that needs to be dove into, but it's at the very early stages right now, and there's been no decisions that have been made regarding the finality of the contract.
Yeah, but
Do-
I would add that we've been in discussions with BPA, or Public Power has, over 100 utilities in dialogue with BPA since late 2020. And I would only add that in this contract, unlike previous contracts, we do believe through our associations, similar utilities such as us, load following, smaller, more rural utilities, seem to have more of a seat at the table. And in previous contract negotiations, I do not believe that was the case.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I was more interested in whether the PUD plans to engage, the county, the city, tribal partners, citizens, others in the county for input or education as you build the new contract.
Yeah, it's actually a standing agenda item at all of our meetings with our Board of Commissioners. So the second and fourth Mondays of every month, we engage with public comment about the contract and with our commissioners. So it's a standing agenda item for from now until it's signed.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
But you're not planning on doing any proactive outreach?
Yeah, we we plan to do proactive outreach. Unfortunately, at this time, Mark, we just don't have any definitive status of where things are at. But
Okay.
I'm happy to get with you and talk about some ideas if you have some and how you'd like to see that unfold.
yeah.
Great.
Hey,
Thank
I
you.
would also add that BPA on the website does have customer engagement on all the topics they're discussing with utilities, meaning they actually have public meetings on the very issues that are being discussed between BPA and the utilities. And that's on an ongoing basis. I believe that's almost monthly.
So I know we're right at 9, but I understand from Jamestown Tribe, Joe Allen and Ron, they attended a renewable energy conference for tribes, and they have intentions to develop renewable energy resources. Have you been able to coordinate with them? Because obviously they'd use your distribution and transmission lines. And is that something that you would need to know their hopes and their intent before you sign off on the next contract? How long is that next contract with BPA?
It's to be determined right now. It could be anywhere from 5 to 20 years, but it's looking like it's going to be another 20-year contract. And to answer your question, Colleen, we would need to know, I guess, the details on the size of the renewable generation that they're looking to bring. And so I'm happy to have our engineering department get in contact with them and flush out those details.
Yeah, we'd like to get contact and discussions almost immediately. There are some BPA limitations or hurdles Anything up to 200 kW is pretty much automatic and can be handled through our standard interconnect agreement. When you get above that point, we do have to notify BPA about the additional load. And if it goes north of 1 megawatt, it becomes a little more complex on BPA interconnect requirements that will have to be fulfilled. But yeah, we would enjoy working with the tribe on any of their initiatives. And also to let everyone know, the state has actually initiated a grant for low income community solar that is that's opened up to housing authorities, assistant groups that will allow up to a 200 kW community solar that, if done properly, will largely be paid for by the state. And those funds become significant next year, and we're going to be promoting that. And Jamestown may be interested in opportunities there with state funding, because I think if it's associated with low income or housing assistance, then it's open availability to large numbers of organizations, tribes, otherwise.
Okay. Yeah. Also, I just received yesterday an email from USDA about electric vehicle. I'm trying to post it in the, am I going to be able to do this? Yeah. Oh, no. Part of it anyway. There are links, but the electric vehicle through the IIJA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And so there's $7.5 billion to DOE and DOT, and I'll put the link in there also. Is that something that that the PUD might pursue?
Yes, we'd be interested, and we're keeping an eye on all those grant opportunities. We work close with Energy Northwest. We submitted an application for the electrification of the 101 corridor. Unfortunately, the 101 corridor did not, meet the funding criteria for this round, but we expect future rounds. So between Jefferson, Mason, Clallam PUD, Grays Harbor, we weren't successful in the most recent effort, but we will apply again. So to make sure we didn't miss it, I'm sure we didn't, but you can forward that information to us.
Okay, that's the webinar link. And I'll forward you the email as well that I got. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I'm sure there are lots more questions, but we really appreciate your time. And I think the community is really happy to meet the new general manager and assistant general manager of our Clallam PUD. And I noted that Commissioner Ozias wanted to specifically thank Sean DePlane for all the work that he's done regarding the broadband work. So anyway, thank you, everyone. And I'm going to stop the recording.